It is the KORNer Booth pregame show. Travis Kriens here. Marcus Traxler, Landon, Dierks of the Mitchell Republic here as we preview the week coming up here. It's the final week of high school football for 9-man and 11B. And, of course, we do have Mitchell Colonel football tonight to KORN News Radio. 2 games at home for Mitchell. They play number 1 Huron. We will delve into probably the biggest game for Mitchell, the most anticipated of the year, of course, Huron and Mitchell. Taking a look here, now we can really look at the brackets, what the brackets may be, teams that need to win this week, because as the cliche goes, Marcus, playoffs start for some teams this week because they have to win, or else their season will be done. And we look at some of those teams. Let's start at the top with 11B, and teams that maybe need a win this week to get in, or else their season really will be over. Bridgewater, Emory, Ethan, among those, are kind of right on the bubble right now. They're outside, and I guess the biggest problem for Bridgewater, Emory, they got Parker this week, and the 2 teams in front of them play each other. So that's kind of a tough outlook here tonight for the Seahawks.
Yes, and you mentioned that, they've got those 2 teams in front of them. Flandreau and Beersford play each other. Bridgewater, Emory, Ethan lost to Beersford, so they don't have the tiebreaker with them. And they did not play Flandreau. I wonder if they played Flandreau. Parker's safely in the playoffs at this point, and that's who Bridgewater, Emory, Ethan plays in this. It's going to be, I don't see a path necessarily. Bridgewater, Emory, Ethan's got to win, but I'm not sure they're going to get in, even with a victory. So
you need something elsewhere. You need a team to drop above or below. It's a lot to take in when you're going, especially through football, and 20, 30 some teams. You're looking at who could potentially get above that 500 mark, below the 500 mark. But yeah, it seems like a 2-win Bridgewater, Emory, Ethan team probably not making the playoffs this year.
And the big thing with the Seahawks this season is they didn't win any of the 50-50 games, the toss-up games that you really want when you're in this situation now in the last week of the season when you have to have a win. And I mentioned the Beersford game, that they lost that by 1 point, and I think they were up in that game. They lost that by 1 point. They lost to Woonsocket Western Springs by 1 point. Those are the 2 games. You tip either one of those in your direction, you're in the playoffs. I mean, you win both those games, you might have a home game at this stage.
Yeah. You look at area representation in 11B, I think you've got 4 teams solidly in. You've got Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central. They're tied with Clark Willow Lake for a 3 seed. Wagner at a number 5 right now. Mount Vernon Plankington at 10. And then McCook Central Montrose at 13. And then Chamberlain and Winter on the outskirts of our coverage. But for the paper, Chamberlain and Winter tied for that 11 seat. So a lot of area representation in 11B, a couple at the top, a couple at the bottom. Bridgewater on the outside looking in. But potentially probably next week we can look at those dangerous 10 seeds and below, who are going to be some of those teams that maybe underperformed in the regular season, like a Winter and some other teams that you say, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if they go on a bit of a run, but I guess we'll keep that for next week.
Yeah, Chamberlain and Winter play each other, and the Titans and the Bucks play each other, so you've got a few of those area matchups. I don't think we're going to see any repeats between those 2 teams next week, so they'll find somebody new to play, but big game for Winter and Chamberlain because they're tied right now in seed points, so somebody's going to move up quite a bit with a win. Both those teams are playing their 9th game. They each took on an extra one this season, and Mount Vernon Plankington has been tough. They haven't been hard to put away so far this season, so that could be an interesting game with Woonsocket, Western Springs, Sanborn Central.
And should perhaps Bridgewater knock off Parker, you're looking at Chamberlain or Winter maybe going up. They are a full point behind Parker, but there's still plenty to play for, and seeding, of course, a real big issue because there's going to be some teams that maybe have a more preferable side of the brackets. Landon, bringing you in here,
Yes, sir. I'm also here.
I think you've seen this team here. Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central. One of the more surprised teams, not only in this class 11B, but also anybody in the states. 7-0, Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central looking to complete an undefeated regular season versus MVP later tonight. They beat Chamberlain last week 20-8, and the story of the Bucks this year has been their defense and how many turnovers they create. They don't score a lot of points, but they don't give up a lot of points either. Obviously, dangerous team going into the playoffs. But when you play them, you kind of know they're not going to score much more than 20. And the turnovers are kind of, how much of that is luck? How much of that is they create them themselves? Or maybe they just take advantage of a bad pass here, a fumble put on the ground. Is that a dangerous game to play for Woonsocket kind of relying on these turnovers to where maybe there's a game coming up against an Elk Point Jefferson, against a St. Thomas More, where your defense might be okay, but those turnovers may not be as beneficial.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's luck, the turnovers, because once you do it, on a sustained rate, there's something to be said for that. And I mean, at that point, I don't believe it's luck. I believe it's good defense and opportunistic defense. But you are correct in saying it is a bit of a dangerous game to be playing these low scoring contests where you are more or less relying on your defense to win you the game instead of your offense. I'll agree with that.
Well, and if you were to say it's luck, and I mean there is a degree of that in there, there's also the point where that luck dries up. All of a sudden you don't get any turnovers. It's not a game where there's turnovers. You play a team that secures the ball very well. I'm going to just say it. I think the Bucs will be ripe for an upset at some point in the postseason. I hate to say that, but it's just when you don't score a lot and you're relying on your defense to create for you, I think it's hard to maintain that in the playoffs as you play better and better teams. So that's going to be a tough one for me going forward. I will say the teams that practice turnovers, and I guarantee you Woonsocket Western Springs must practice it or dedicate a few sessions of practice to it. Those are the teams that are good at it. So all credit to them because I'm guessing they're playing out what they practice.
The one thing I will say, just kind of looking at the standings, is there's not many teams to me that like absolutely jump out as these teams could overwhelm the Bucs from a scoring perspective.
Very fair.
So, I mean,
there's one I'd be afraid of, and that's a rematch with Wagner. 13-6 a couple weeks ago. Sure. I don't think it'd be a high-scoring game, but is Wagner going to turn it over 5 times? You can play duel. If you want to play duel, be my guest. But I don't know if Woonsocket, they probably wouldn't prefer. I think there's teams higher on their list than Wagner to have a rematch.
Yeah, I really think, obviously, the two at the top, Elk Point Jefferson and St. Thomas More, very explosive offenses at over 40 points a game. But in terms of like teams that could absolutely overwhelm them, I don't know that there is another team here that I would absolutely say has the firepower to run away from them.
And I'm going to be perfectly honest, the teams that are listed here, Dual, Sioux Valley, Mobridge, Pollock, haven't seen them this year. So I can't necessarily say that, those are the teams that are going to run it up. So
you probably like Winter and Chamberlain more than those teams to compete.
I mean, I'm not surprised the way the Chamberlain game went last week. I think those two teams are kind of mirror images of each other in some ways because
the way they want the game to go.
They both play defense big time. And Winter, I think, wants to be able to do that. I think they've just not been able to do it all the time this season. We know what they want to do on offense. They want to run the football. So, and I think both those teams are potentially scary opponents for whoever they might match up with in the first round next week.
And you're listening to the KORNer Booth pregame show. Travis, Marcus, Landon looking at the week ahead here. End of the regular season for 11B and 9-man. Again, it's brought to you this season by Marlin's Family Restaurant of Mitchell, Jimmy John's. We know they've got the toasted subs by now, and James Valley Landscape Solutions. Clark Willow Lake has kind of gotten, with all these northern teams with Dual and Mobridge Pollock, they've broken away from the pack, beating those two schools the last week, and they got Webster, a one-win Webster team tonight. So Clark Willow Lake is a team that I was kind of in that 5 spot, and I was hoping they would kind of knock off those teams on the periphery of the top 5. And right now, Clark Willow Lake and Woonsocket, they are tied for that number 3 seed. So that's a team that probably a lot of people aren't talking about is Clark Willow Lake.
If we rewind all the way to the beginning of the year, I think Clark Willow Lake was the team I was high on, and I said just the basketball athletes and how sometimes we see that crop up on the football field.
Basketball equals football. You said it.
Yes,
you said it.
I guess that's true. But just how we see that sometimes crop up on the football field, and it seems like Clark Willow Lake is, certainly hit their stride with 5 wins in a row. It's interesting that I think I hold them in even higher regard because they were able to avenge that loss to Sioux Valley so quickly. Mm-hmm. Normally you wouldn't have that opportunity playing a team twice in a regular season, but they lose, and then 2 weeks later, they win more handily, albeit slightly, than they lost.
It's very interesting because, you have 2 games against the same team that you split. I guess in terms of seed points, it's kind of a wash, but when you're comparing it to Woonsocket, well, I'd rather be Woonsocket. I don't want the loss to a 4-3 team on my schedule. So I would have to think that will be a boost to them. I don't know. Woonsocket Western Springs is still undefeated. That carries a bonus Oh, they have one loss. Yeah, sorry. So
I think Woonsocket needs winner to beat Chamberlain because they did not play, I guess they did. So they played winner in Chamberlain. One of those teams is going to go under 500.
Yes.
So that's going. They're going to lose points no matter what. So
you talked me out of it. The Bucks are undefeated. They're 7-0.
Yeah, they're losing. Like Travis said, they're losing points no matter what because one of those teams has to go.
Has to go underneath. Yeah.
We can't end in a tie like the NFL.
Yeah. So I think it's also interesting with Clarkwell Lake. They, to me, some of the scores, I freely admit I haven't seen them this season, but are similar kind of to what the Blackhawks have done. So to me, it's kind of right that they're tied, at least at this point. And how much does it matter? It probably just determines what side of the bracket you're going to be on, determines if whether you're maybe going to Elk Point or going to Rapid City if we get that far in the semifinals.
I like the geography of 11B.
It's spread out a little bit.
You got EPJ, your best of the South, Southeast. Then if you go north, you got Clark Willow Lake. And if you go west, you got St. Thomas More. So you've got the best of all the regions converging
and then right in the
here.
middle.
Central South
Springs.
Dakota. Yeah.
Woonsocket kind of in the middle there. So again, kind of wrapping up Woonsocket, Wessington, Springs, Sanborn, Central. They've got what I like to call like 3 non-counter games against, one-win teams or zero-win teams.
The selection committee, they can't consider these games, you're saying.
They beat Lead Deadwood 32-10. Lead Deadwood has not won a game this year. They beat Miller Highmore Herald 33-0. That's a one-win team. And they beat Webster 53-0. Webster, a one-win team. So if you kind of move those out of the area, look at the teams they've played against, playoff quality teams that at least can win 4 or 5 games and be at that 500 mark. You look at that part of the schedule, they've not scored more than 20 points against any of those teams, but they also haven't given up more than 12 against anybody. They've gotten 2 shutouts against 2 of those teams I mentioned, but they give up 6 to Wagner. They give up 6 to Winter. They gave up 12 to Bridgewater Emory Ethan. That's their high mark on the season. So it's been extremely difficult to get more than 1 score versus this team this year.
And to bring it back to what we talked about before, defense you can count on. Defense travels in the playoffs. So
weather, who knows?
Weather, that could be pretty significant for them going forward. Just to your point about the schedule and who they've played, because they're in Central South Dakota, they've had a kind of a wide smattering of teams where you go out west, you play Lead Deadwood, you play Webster area. No, those teams are not the strongest opponents, but compared to some of the other teams who don't make a trip, outside of their area, you at least get an idea of, you have a better idea of how they line up because they've played a few other regions of the state.
I certainly don't know that it's been like this the whole season for the Bucks, but in that one game I was at against Wagner, the thing that really stood out to me is certainly they have on defense great front 7 play, but when Wagner was able to get down in the red zone, which was fairly frequently in that game, they were able to kind of let their perimeter players play, on an island, so to speak. And there's some playmakers out there that make it not easy to throw the ball either when you're down there. So there's not a winning situation against that defense, and in a division that, quite frankly, you don't see a lot of field goals being kicked. You have to get in the end zone, and they're kind of a bend don't break in that regard.
I think red zone defense is one of the most important stats you can look at of like, okay, they got down inside the 20. How often are you keeping them out of the end zone? Just to jump ahead, that's been one of the things Dakota Wesleyan has done extremely well this season. Is like teams get touchdowns like half the time they get down to the red zone. So if you're able to do that in high school where maybe the play is a little bit more inconsistent because it's high school, it's not college, I think that's a big deal.
And the top of 11B, it's a tie now for the 1 seed, St. Thomas More and EPJ. They are tied for seed points. So we will see how that shakes out and if it actually matters. We'll see maybe who gets a better side of the bracket. So extensive 11B coverage. And we got 4 or 5 area teams headed towards the playoffs. Big game this week, 9-man football, number 1 versus number 1. Marion Freeman Academy versus Avon in that conference matchup, a crossover matchup. And the thing I like the most about this is win or lose, I don't think it's going to affect either team's seed because there's a large gap between the teams, whether it's in front of them or behind them. Freeman has a 2.5-point lead on Hamlin for that 1 seed, which is just massive. So Freeman, win or lose, should be your number 1 seed in AA. And then for Avon, they're down about 7/10 versus Del Rapids St. Mary's for the 1 seed, but it would not appear Avon is going to fall past the 2 because they're over 3 points ahead of Folkton. So I like this matchup to where it's not really going to affect things come playoff time.
I've come to a similar conclusion, but just for the listener out there as well, I noticed that I don't know if it's always been like this. I think after, in previous years, they've added the point after the fact. This year, the point for being undefeated is built in until you lose.
Yeah.
I kind of like
So one of these teams obviously has to lose. They will automatically drop over a full point because
that's good.
the point is built in the language of.
I don't know how well that's advertised. I feel like people should know that.
Yeah,
I'm glad we figured that out.
I went and looked at the handbook the other day.
Because I didn't used to be that way. They used to add it on at the end, and that would always change things too with the undefeated teams. So as for the matchup, I like that it's happening. I like that it's a game we're talking about. It's a big deal here in this last week of the season, but I agree with what you're saying, that I like that it's not going to break either team, the loser of this team, because I think they both deserve to be seated in the top 2 in their brackets, especially since there's a 2-class difference. I think Freeman Marion and Freeman Academy is going to win based on the recent matchups between these two teams. Avon, I like that they're getting a good test here because we're going to learn a little bit more about them and just how good they are. And I think you combine this with and Landon pointed this out to me the other day, you combine this with Del Rapids St. Mary just playing Alcester Hudson last week, beating them. Now they're going to play Sioux Falls Lutheran. We're learning a little bit more about Del Rapids St. Mary as well. So we're getting an idea of the 9B picture a little bit. I know you were asking more about 9AA, but Freeman Marion and Freeman Academy has had an extremely difficult schedule. The random teams they've been paired up with have been tough teams. Their non-league games were Parkston, Elkton, Lake Benton, and Bon Home. Those are 3 of the tougher games you could get for a non-conference match or non-conference matchups, and then they get Avon here in the last game. So hats off to the Phoenix for being 7-0, and I think they're going to be in a very good situation come Friday when we learn the bracket, or Thursday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe the Phoenix have the most difficult schedule by opponent win percentage in 9AA, which makes it all the more remarkable that they are 7-0 at this stage. I would imagine if you looked at the teams around them in terms of if you sorted teams by the opponent win percentage that they faced, probably not a lot of high win teams in that bunch. No.
Elkton Lake Benton at 6-1. They've played a pretty good schedule, but other than that, Bon Home has played a pretty tough schedule at 6-2. But you got
New Underwood, Redfield,
some not so
Bennett
good
County.
teams. So Freeman.
Those are teams that don't have as many wins for sure.
Yeah, and then you look at again 4 area teams here, 9AA playoffs. Parkston tied with Hamlin for that 2 seed. You have Kimball White Lake at number 8 right now. See if they hold on to that. They could potentially play Viborg Hurley in the first round in an 8-9 matchup.
Going to be very interesting because Elkton and Hamlin play each other this week. If Elkton wins that game, who gets the 2 seed?
And where does Parkston fit into that?
They're going to be in there.
That's what I mean.
Very interesting.
I think it'd be between Parkston and Elkton, and there's too much math involved to really hash it out because you got teams that are going to gain points because of teams they've played, and then
too many permutations.
It goes down the rabbit hole way too far.
I think home field advantage fairly important. That's a long bus ride either way from Parkston to Hamlin or Elkton, wherever you're going. That's a couple hours.
We've seen
on a bus.
not many teams have a lot of success going and playing Parkston at Parkston. So if they can get home field advantage all the way through the playoffs, I think that would be huge for them.
The same thing's true about Hamlin. People are not typically going to Hayti and beating them in the playoffs either. So I think home field is going to be pretty important in this bracket.
Then you got Scotland Meadow, of course. They score a bunch of points. They're in that 10 seed right now, tied with Gregory. And then Hanson at number 12 right now. That's our Q1073 game of the week. Hanson at Canastota. And I think Hanson's going to be one of those teams we focus on next week of being in an 11 or a 12 seed. Could they potentially go on the road and pull off an upset? Give me Hanson Hill City. If there's a God in this world, give me Hanson at Hill City for the playoffs next week.
Nobody's eager about making that trip, but I think you might be eager to play that game and have a crack at Hill City. And I'm just interested to see, we got a lot of teams in close proximity to each other in the middle part of the bracket. I think this is probably the one class where it feels like we could talk about what order they're in this week, but I feel like the order is definitely going to change before next week. Kimball White Lake, Viborg Hurley, Gregory, Scotland Meadow, you mentioned them. Hanson could move up. They're in a tie with Great Plains Lutheran right now. It's got to settle itself somehow, and I'm interested to see where things end up there.
Again, taking a look here at the end of the regular season, we're seeing where things stand right now. 9A, you've got the 2 undefeated teams tied at the top. That is Wall, and that is Warner. We'll see who ends up with that 1 seed. You've got 2 area teams, Howard at 6, and Platte Geddes with a couple losses here late in the season. They have fallen off to that number 7 seed, but I like Howard as a 6, very dangerous 6. I think they're probably the third best team in this class. You got Phillip, you got Ipswich above them seed points wise, but I would like Howard going to any of those places to pick up a road win.
Yeah, very interesting class because Wall and Warner are tied in seed points. They're both going to win this week. We think Wall has Lyman. That's, I guess, maybe a tricky game, but Wall should win that game. And they will be 1-2. I mean, in almost any scenario, I don't think it matters who is which one. But then Phillip is 5-1. They're only playing 7 games this year. They lost one and they weren't able to get it back.
Can you play one game and go 1-0? Hey, we're champs.
I think you got to play 4. I think you got to play like 6 games to get seeded. But Phillip is in the 3 slot right now, so
maybe not the third best team out there.
We'll see. Ipswich has played a tough schedule. They're 6-1. They're in the 4 spot. Alcester Hudson has had their moments, and right now it's probably appropriate they're ahead of Howard because they have the head-to-head. And then Howard and Platte Geddes, like you said. So I like the top 8 in this class. I think they're all potentially very solid teams. I think there's going to be a lot of lopsided games in the first round in this class, and then once we get to the quarters, we'll figure some stuff out.
Here's some fun fact for you. The last 2 weeks, Phillip, number 3 Phillip, has allowed 87 points. They have won both those games.
Yeah. And that's maybe
44-43 against Hill City and 48-44 against Lyman.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think if you're Lyman, you're probably kicking yourself. You had that game on your home field. You had a chance to maybe pull off a big upset.
The opposite of Woonsocket.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I'll give Phillip credit. They beat Hill City, a team that people love. That's a team in 9AA.
Other people.
Other people.
Not us.
And
Not us.
I love the mascot.
Yep.
I'm good on the rest of it right now. But very impressive. And when they've played the toughest team in this class, Wall, they got beat 54-6 in the first game. So I would guess they've come a long way since then. But this is another one where I got to see the bracket, and then we'll have a better idea of kind of where things are pointed.
You know, one team that obviously we don't see a lot around here, but I do think probably is, I would say for real, is Ipswich. When you look at, they've beat Falkton, they beat Harriet Selby, they lost by only 6 points to Warner. I mean, that stacks up pretty well. Just about, you're not going to get much better results from a team in this class than that.
They put their nose in there. They played some tough teams. I like that. And they're one of the teams I think is worth keeping an eye on here. And I think, I just said it, but I think once we get down to a handful of teams, this could be as entertaining a class as any.
And you might want to clip this for next week. I agree with Travis.
How about that?
What did I say?
If Howard is the number 6 seed, holy smokes.
Sign me up.
That's scary.
Yeah. One loss to Freeman, a month and a half ago.
Alcester.
In the very first game, they lost to Alcester Hudson.
It's like, all right,
and
take
so
your chances.
They've won 6 in a row.
They're playing like Howard.
I was about to say, we know what they do at this time of year. They're very, very hard to eliminate, and so whoever might draw them would be like, oh no.
Just interesting to look at just pure points per game here. You got Wall at 56. They've been super impressive. Howard is number 2 at 43 points a game. Then you got Ipswich at 42. And to me, it's always kind of a red flag a little bit when you're high up and you haven't scored a ton of points. And I guess Alcester Hudson would be the biggest red flag there. They're averaging 31 points a game, but and it's funny, Phillip is averaging 35, but as you just said, they've gone crazy the last 2 weeks in the scoring column.
And if there is a 4 or a 5 seed to get to the Dome, it's usually in Class 9B. There's a team under the surface that bubbles up, and Harriet Selby area knocked off number 1 Sully Buttes last week in the polls, 22-20. So that opened up some eyes, and that allowed Avon to be your new number 1 team. Avon at that 2 seed at the moment. Corsica Stickney at number 8. Canastota at number 11. And it seems like Del Rapids St. Mary's just they're never number 1. They're always in the poll, and it seems like at the end they're always in that semifinal or near that championship. And they might be very well the best team in this class, and we haven't talked too much about St. Mary's because it's been Sully Buttes and Avon 1-2 for the majority of the year.
Yeah, and that's another one where basketball equals football. This is a lot of very good athletes in that program for it not being a very big school, but that's been the story for Del Rapids St. Mary for a very long time. I was reading, Travis knows this, I've been reading some old stuff, digging up some old stuff ahead of the state championships, and Del Rapids St. Mary for a very long time, it's been one of the smallest schools in the state, but punching well above its weight in terms of athletic prowess. I think that the most interesting thing in this class here is, like you said, Sully Buttes took a loss. Right now, you still got Falkton at the 3 slot. This is another class where 1 and 2 are not, as you said, are not going to move. in terms of the seeding. I think it's right that Faulkton area is a top 4 seed, and we've talked about how they've been challenged. They've lost 3 games by, I think, 15 points. And total. Yeah, total. I think a 3, a 4, and a 7 or an 8, whatever it would be in there. So very impressive. I saw Corsica sticking last week against Burke. Looks solid. I don't know how well they're going to match up when it comes to these top teams. But and then I think Sioux Falls Lutheran will be interesting. Can they give Del Rapids St. Mary a game here in this last regular season round?
Yeah, you may not be looking at, an 8 or a 10 seed making a run, but maybe a 4 or a 5 out of this class.
Harriet Selby, just got our attention.
Seed, boom.
Just got our attention last week. So, and they're another team. They've put a pretty tough schedule. That north, central, northeast part of the state usually pops up in 9B one way or the other between Faulkton area, Sully Buttes, Harriet Selby, Hitchcock Tulare in past years. So, let's see if it's one or two of those teams that might make it to the Dome.
And I want to see the rematches. Are we going to get any first round or maybe quarterfinal, semifinal rematches? How are those games going to go the second time around?
Yeah, if it started today, Sully Buttes and Harriet Selby area would play each other again.
Yeah,
right now and
in the quarters. Yep,
in the quarters if they were both to advance. So that would be very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, full brackets. Hopefully by the end of the evening and maybe early Saturday. So we'll see. Class 11B and 9-man football. They start their playoffs next Thursday night.
Thursday night, yep.
Thursday night football. Then we'll take a timeout here, Marcus. Landon, we'll take a timeout. We'll talk Mitchell Colonels as they've got a chance.
30 or full.
30 or full. We'll take a 90. Take a 90-second timeout, which is a full. Huron and Mitchell, the big rivalry. Huron, again, we talk about surprise teams, and maybe nobody more surprising than Huron being at the top of 11AA here with just 2 weeks to go. You're listening to the KORNer Booth pregame show this season. It's brought to you by Jimmy John's, Marlin's Family Restaurant, and James Valley Landscape Solutions.
Feeling hungry but not sure what for? The buffet at Marlin's is the perfect choice. So many mouth-watering options, everyone will find something they crave, and no one leaves hungry. Marlin's offers a breakfast buffet on Saturdays and Sundays, 7 to 2, a lunch buffet Monday through Fridays from 11 to 2, then a dinner buffet Friday and Saturday from 5 to 9. And don't forget, kids eat free on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's Marlin Family Restaurant in Mitchell.
At Jimmy John's, we don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. We use fresh veggies because we don't hate salads. We just feel bad for them. We make our sandwiches exactly how you want because you're the one who's eating it. And we bake bread all day, every day because stale bread isn't bread. It's croutons. Sandwich history is written by the victors. Good thing we have legible handwriting. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.
Fall isn't the end of the growing season. It's the beginning of next year's beautiful landscape. At James Valley Garden Center, they make fall planting easy. Trees, shrubs, perennials. They all take root better in cool weather, and their team is ready to help you with expert advice. James Valley Garden Center is your local trusted partner for all things outdoors, season after season. James Valley Garden Center at 600 West Spruce. Let's go outside.
KORNer Booth pregame show continues. KORN News Radio. Mitchell football tonight. 2 home games to end the season for Mitchell. Starts at 7 o'clock versus number 1 Huron. Huron looking at that number 1 seed. And Marcus, they seem primed to be the number 1 seed. And if Pat Larson's enthusiasm in the postgame interview at Brandon last week is any indication, Mitchell is very, very excited to potentially at least play with a number 1 team here coming up tonight.
And I think Mitchell will. I think Mitchell will play a solid game. I think this is kind of the
test.
Well, I think it's kind of like
their Super Bowl in a way.
It's their Super Bowl. I think this is your last best shot to throw everything at them. I think Yankton's a little bit different animal in terms of Mitchell being able to keep pace with them. But you look at Huron, they only beat Pierre by 6. They beat T by 16, who Mitchell played with T. They beat Spearfish by 2. There is signs that Mitchell could maybe play with this team. Now, they're going to need a really big defensive effort. They're going to need to finish drives, which is the MO of this season. My goodness, they're going to need to finish drives with preferably touchdowns, but you would take a few field goals if that's what it comes down to, if Mitchell's able to get into scoring position. So I'm just interested to see what kind of fight is this? What kind of matchup is this? Is it Huron comes out and is slugging and is able to get a knockout punch on Mitchell right away? Or is Mitchell able to maybe, kind of similar to that game against T, get a stop, get a defensive touchdown early to flip things and get things pointed in their direction? Because that could change the whole tenor of this game.
Again, Landon, quarterback for Huron, Anderson Porish. We know him for basketball. I believe he was a receiver last year, and he's 6'6". Very odd to see somebody of that body structure be a quarterback, long and lanky at 6'6".
The Brock Osweiler.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of has that going on. I'm not going to lie.
Who is the Mike Glennon of 11 AA football?
Had a Davis Mills neck on him, and he runs a little bit, 82 carries on the season, so he's going to run and he's going to pass. You probably prefer him passing. He's only completed 50% of his passes, 9 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, so I think a lot of it comes down to can they stop the quarterback from moving around, which is always an issue. But it feels like even if Huron does their job these next 2 weeks, that not a lot of people are going to take the Tigers to go to the Dome. They're going to be like, Pierre, Yankton. It's going to be like Huron's going to have to prove it in the playoffs. It feels like it.
I'm going to go back to one of the middle things you said in that sentence, not the Dome conversation quite yet. I'm going to push back on the notion that it's all about how Mitchell contains Anderson Porish. Mitchell got ran over by
the one game in general.
Last year. They allowed a guy who had not had a lot of success up to that point a year ago to run for almost 200 yards in this game.
Against Huron.
Yes.
Yep.
So Mitchell needs to start with trying to contain, in this case, it is Landon Holst, the leading rusher for Huron. I think that's certainly what I would start with if I was Pat Larson and crew. And then certainly, that's not to discount Porsche as a playmaker. He's proven that he can make plays both through the air and on the ground. I believe he has 15 or 16 maybe total touchdowns on the season. So very, very capable in that regard. But you got to keep yourself in the game by not letting Huron control the clock and everything that comes with a punishing ground game like we saw a year ago in this game.
And Mitchell's giving up 136 yards a game to running games. That's 4.8 yards per carry, 17 touchdowns. I mean, I think if
maybe in that case they'd sign up, say, sure, we'll give up 128 and we'll kind of roll the dice with that this week.
I think, if you're saying we're going to give Huron 136 yards and maybe 2 rushing touchdowns,
all right,
then you need to stop the pass as well. I think I agree with Landon. I mean, every football coach ever to walk this earth would say stop the run, and I think that's absolutely accurate. But if they give up what we're talking about here, they have a chance. The biggest thing is cannot have the self-inflicted mistakes, the self-inflicted turnovers. That's been what has submarined almost every game this season. And so that is a big part of what they need to avoid. I do agree with Travis. I watched Mitch Grant just take Mitchell apart in that game against T, and we ended up being the decisive factor in the end of that game, and that was all just quarterback run. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much of just dedicated quarterback run they have. I got to think there's a decent amount of it in the playbook.
He has like 82 carries.
If he's ran it 80 times. So got to stop the run, whether it's going to the running back or it's quarterback run. Have to stop the run and give yourself a chance in the second half.
Unlike Mitchell, who likes to involve 5 or 6 different people in the backfield, Huron, it's Holst and Porish, 1 and 2. I mean, the rest of their team, according to their stats, has 30 carries on the season divided up among 6 different players. So it's going to be 15 or 20 touches here, 15, 20 touches there. You know who's going to get the ball, but can you stop them? Apparently, not many people have been able to stop Huron. They beat Aberdeen last week, 39-0.
I have to
reviewing my stats from last year. They gave it to Thackeray Hansen, I think was the kid's name. They gave it to him 27 times in this game. So yeah, they are not afraid to really have like a bell cow style back.
I was going to say, what's better, a bell cow or a workhorse? Which one would you rather have?
I like a workhorse.
All right. Plow the fields.
It's been a tale as old as time.
That's right.
I mean, we have Budweiser beer because of the workhorses. So there's really nothing else that has to be said along those lines. I think there's a big thing here of, Huron's had a pretty stout defense. I think that's where this game's going to be decided. It's going to be whether Mitchell can move the ball effectively against them and finish drives, or is Huron able to impose their will at the line of scrimmage? And that's really what I'm looking at. I think Mitchell will probably empty the bag of whatever trick plays, whatever's out there to be used, because if you don't win this game, you're definitely not going to the playoffs. Even if you win this game, I'm not sure you're going to the playoffs.
I did some calculations this morning. I was wondering,
you would, yeah.
If they beat Huron and they beat Yankton, where does that put them? I compared them to Brookings since they're the 8th seed. Brookings has Douglas this week, and they have Huron next week. So if they beat Douglas, lose to Huron, it came out without doing any getting deep into it. Brookings still had 2 more points. This is 2 more. So things could change if, Mitchell's got to win these 2 games, which is very unlikely, but chances are still there. 1%.
Did you notice, I believe it was just last week, there was a surprise addition to the Huron roster.
Who's that?
He's 6'9". He's going to play college basketball at South Dakota State University. It's one Blake Elwine.
What does he play? What does he do?
Wide receiver.
Okay.
He did catch one pass last week. Apparently, he was on the team a year ago, and from what I understand, he decided...
Oh, we're good. I should go out. I can win a state title.
Probably because he has this college basketball future that he was not going to play football.
Oh, Colton Smith. Look at him.
And for whatever reason, I'm not going to cast aspersions like
Travis will.
Travis might. But,
whatever reasons, I'll make
for
up.
whatever reasons, it appears he's back on the football team, and I think he caught one pass a week ago. But that is also a weapon. Like if he gets integrated into the offense, there's nobody 6'9" on Mitchell's defense. There's nobody that can
There's
really
a 6'5" kid who's pretty good.
that they use as a down defensive end.
Let's go, folks. You
just
and
like
me.
basketball, man
You
to
and
man.
me. Let's go.
Put Colton Smith at corner.
I was just going to say this was
one game.
I was struggling to find my thoughts earlier, but Huron, no question, has watched the tape. They've read Landon Dierks in the Mitchell Republic. They know that if you throw it towards Colton Smith, bad things happen to you. So I think that's probably another reason they're going to run the ball. And as we've said before, I'm against fades in the end zone unless you're throwing it to a 6'9" guy. So Blake Elwine makes a lot of sense as a potential receiver for the Huron Tigers.
AA got back to normal last week.
Oh.
Some sensibility here, Landon.
Before we stray off of Huron,
Before we do 25 minutes on 11.
Here's that nugget I was.
All right.
According to Max Preps, Huron has not won 7 games in a season since Max Preps has their records back to 2004.
Even the year they made the dome.
Correct, because they were like a 6 seed that year.
And
only
they
had
were like
4
6-5 going into the championship, I think.
Mm-hmm. So they have got to 6 wins, I think, twice in the last 20 years.
Not to 7.
This would be quite literally a high water mark for almost 2 generations.
Maybe 3. Yeah, you go back. How far does that go back? That's always interesting.
Who knows how far back it truly goes? The records on Max Preps only go back again to 2004.
20 years. Yeah.
But they don't have a 7-win
Duffy.
season.
We'll ask Duffy. When the heck was the last time he had a team this good?
Yeah. I know in the early 90s they were in the championship game or made the semis because I was looking up a bunch of this crap before. My factoid, and I'm sure Landon has it in his preview, last 4 games between these 2 teams decided by a touchdown or less. So will that happen again? And even last year, obviously Huron wasn't as good, but it was a 3-point game. So I just think this will be a close game. This is just what these teams typically do. And I think Mitchell's going to give it their absolute best effort.
That week where we dove deep into the rivalries, 15 of the last 21 matchups with these 2 teams, 2 touchdowns or less.
Yeah.
You're going to be driving across Mitchell late Friday night. You're going to see a bunch of books in the yard. You know why?
Throw the books out.
You're going to throw the records out.
That's
Everybody's going to be going to their bookshelves and throwing their books into their front yard.
That was clever.
And then
throwing the records out.
And then I'm going to go back out and grab those books.
gotta
Because I haven't read all those, so I need to read some of those.
It might rain this weekend, so we want to get the books back. And it's been very wet this week. Watertown beat number 2 T. That was 15-7. Pierre beat Sturgis 44-0. Yankton held on to beat Brookings 14-7. A couple close ones, one that wasn't so close. We talked a lot about the poll last week, and a lot of it was about Sturgis and Yankton, but the biggest dumb thing was T at 2.
They got beat by 5 field goals by Watertown.
Yeah, 15-7.
Was it actually 5 field goals?
Like if I'm ranking teams, like T's like the 8th best team. Like to put them at 2, obviously not to get into this again, but
I don't know if they're the 8th best team. Their defense is
solid.
Really, really good. I would say their defense is probably top 4. Their offense leaves a lot to be desired.
For people to put that at 2 just rubbed me the wrong way. So Pierre beat Sturgis. Sturgis had the win against Yankton, but then they also had the loss against Aberdeen, as we know about, and then they just don't even show up and be competitive against Pierre. And then Yankton, 14-7 against Brookings, not so hot versus a Bobcat team. So Yankton, Their number one ranking in my book, it's on the fringe at the moment. I can be swayed and head towards maybe Pierre.
Well, you'll have a better answer after you see Huron in person on Friday. And
if they just blow Mitchell out, maybe they're number one.
I think Huron has shown they can be number one. Yankton, I think, is 3 weeks in a row they've played a one-score game, so they've been playing with their food a little bit more than they were previously. Since we do it every week, I'll just, for the sake of my transparency, I had Huron 1, I had Yankton 2, I had Pierre 3, Sturgis, and then Spearfish was my top 5.
Yes. 1 second.
This is good podcasting.
Huron, Yankton, Pierre, T, Spearfish.
You still have T at 4.
Because they're they play defense.
T at 4. Yankton versus T, so two teams that are kind of struggling at the moment.
Spearfish, so the head-to-head goes to T.
Yankton 2 hosting number 5 T, and then game I would be most interested in is number 3 Pierre traveling to number 4 Spearfish. Is Pierre on another level right now? Have they found it and they just steamroll Pierre or Spearfish? Or does Spearfish a team we got to be concerned about come playoff time?
So you think Pierre is the next in line for the number 1 seed, you said?
Yeah, last week you said who's the best team.
They've lost to Huron and Yankton, and you'd put them number 1?
I think a lot of that has to do with the margin of error. They lost to Huron on the pick 6 with a minute to go. They tied Yankton after they were down 3 scores. They tied Yankton. They lost that game with a minute to go. And a lot of it is, how do you lose these games, as I said last week? And I think I will be picking Pierre in a couple weeks here to win AA, unless Yankton does something, unless Huron impresses the heck out of me. Pierre right now, I think I would be picking Pierre here 2 weeks out of the playoffs, considering what they did last week, what they could do this week. I mean, again, Pierre, it's the Governors.
Against the good teams, they play them close and they lose. And against the bad teams, for the most part, they play them close and they win. And bad is a strong word.
You can lose to a team and be better than them.
Sure, but again, back to last week with the power rating
that's
versus
why
what your resume is.
That's why I have Yankton at 1, because they beat Huron, they beat Pierre. How do you not have Yankton at 1 if they beat the 2 other contenders in this class? If we want to say Pierre lost these 2 teams, well, how do you not have Huron 1? Because they beat Huron.
Yankton has the worst loss out of them.
Yeah, and I also think Huron is playing much better than they did.
In the Travis Kriens Sportsbook, Yankton lost by a touchdown as a 30-point favorite.
Yeah.
They pulled a Penn State.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zach.
Yeah.
Watertown taking on Sturgis, and
where
again,
do you have Watertown at? They got to be
5. I got them at 5.
You are voting for them still?
Yeah, at 5. Well, they got 6. I think they got 6 points this week. Again, Watertown. I wanted
this
to
deep into the season, I can't vote for you if you have a losing record. I'm sorry. I know they just beat T, but the fact that was your 3rd win of the year and we're this deep, I can't vote you in the top 5. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they lose to Jefferson, Yankton, Pierre. It's like, I want to say again, I wanted to see what Watertown could do against those teams closer to their talent level. Like, I don't really care what they do against Jefferson, Pierre, and Yankton, and I don't care what they do against Douglas. How do you do against Spearfish? They lost, by 11 points the week ago? They beat T by 12, and they play Sturgis this week in that same grouping.
And if they beat Sturgis, they will probably be in my top 5, because at that point they would be back to 500.
Yeah. That's true. And Sturgis would have what I would consider to be 2 bad losses in a row.
I've already dropped Sturgis out of mine.
I have them barely hanging on. So,
and Brookings should pick up a win versus Douglas. So explain to me, because I just rank them. I'm not, as far as ranking teams, I have one ranking that would go through my head. And you've got something called power rankings and something called the poll.
Well, that's that's how we're describing.
Like what is your thought process of a power ranking?
He doesn't watch Josh Pate's college football show.
Well, who is playing the best right now?
Power ratings.
Well,
power ratings is like straight up who. Like if I just had to say who I think the best team is, and you don't even like look at the resume. You're just like, who would I pick to win? That's what a power rating is, and that's what I think.
So how would that differ than how you would rank teams?
Based on what they've done.
Yeah, you're right.
Huron beat Yankton and Pierre. That's why I have Yankton 1 based on what they've done.
Yankton lost as a 30-point favorite in the Travis Kriens Sportsbook.
Yeah. I mean, that two good wins, 2 good wins, 1 bad loss.
And as I argued last week, Huron has 1 loss. It was to Yankton in week 1, and they played them tough for 3 quarters. So I'm giving Huron a little more credit.
Travis is punishing Huron because they allowed a late touchdown against Yankton.
They also beat Spearfish by 2. I punish them for that.
Well, here's the thing. Every team in this
And then
class
Yankton
has,
lost to
every
Sturgis.
team in this class has that. The close win, they all have some of that. So that's you can't really hold that against any of the teams, I don't think, because they've all got a degree of that going on.
I feel like I explained it like this last week. Previous to their win in the Red River shootout, Texas was out of the AP top 25.
Mm-hmm.
They were still, in terms of how Vegas sees them,
Top
they were
10.
one of the 10 best teams in
Yeah.
the country. So that's kind of the difference. Is like,
And they were favored in the game.
Did Texas deserve to be in the top 25? I don't think you can make that argument. But are they a top 10 team? Like in terms of how good they are? Yeah.
And you could make the same argument about Penn State right now of, they might be not anymore with Allerhurt, but like even with the losses, you maybe could say, yeah, they are top 25 in terms of talent. But
if you lose 2 games like they did, it's like
exactly.
Okay.
And that's the same argument I'm using with the Yankton. Now I still have Yankton too, but
then you look at it, you kind of reevaluate things. You
Right.
know, I mean, beating Clemson, big deal. Not really. You got to reevaluate. If Oregon would have played Penn State last week and gone to overtime, that would have been like, what's wrong with Oregon? But we look at it 2 weeks ago, and they win at Oregon, and it's the best win of the year, just winning at Penn State. If that would have happened this week, we'd have been like, what the hell's wrong with Oregon? They only beat this team by 6 in overtime.
Just to jump ahead on this, because we're kind of already talking about it, what would it be like if we changed the order of these 3 games for Penn State? Where they lost to UCLA first, then maybe they had the close game against Oregon in the middle, and then they lose to, in that case, he probably still gets fired. But
Oregon was the first game in the order.
Oregon was the first in the order, then it was UCLA, then it was. But yeah, if you put the Oregon game in the middle and they
or last,
then
wow, they just hung with Oregon.
Yeah, they just hung with Oregon. So, but your talk about the schedule then in that case would be a lot bigger too, because they didn't play anybody before the Big Ten.
I thought it was odd that just Texas just fell off the map after they lost to Florida, who's not terrible. What was it, 29-21?
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. Florida's one of the weirdest teams in the country.
But they've got a very tough schedule. You know, they're not going to win 8 or 9 games, but it's like, okay, you lose at Florida. It's like, okay, you can drop them a little bit. And they lost to Ohio State by a touchdown. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think
it's a bit ridiculous.
I don't know if this is how you see it, Marcus, but since the polls really don't like we don't use the polls for seeding, they don't matter for any real
purpose.
So I like to reward teams for getting big wins and what they've done. Like I don't need to use it as a predictive tool. Because if it was, I'd put Yankton and Pierre 1 and 2, and no matter what happened, I wouldn't move them off those lines no matter what happened on the field the whole year.
Yeah,
pretty much because history has told us that those are 2 that are going to be in the mix at the end.
Yeah,
and I just don't see let's reward teams for what they've done on the field.
Yeah, we need to
like beating Huron and Pierre.
Yeah, we need to reassess on a week-to-week basis. That's why we do the polls every week. The polls are for discussion. We've gotten plenty of mileage out of them in the last few weeks, so that's good. And I also think, my thought process was I had Yankton as the number 1 team. Sturgis beat them. That made a big impression with me. Sturgis has lost 2 games or has struggled since then. And I still think Huron's impressive. They've done it week in, week out. Let's be honest. If they play with their fruit against Mitchell, I'm probably moving Yankton back in front of them. We'll see how it all goes. That's assuming Huron still wins. And it'll depend on what Yankton does as well. So I reserve the right to change my mind. I reserve the right to be wrong as well. So
there we go.
The games that are 1-score games, whether you win by a touchdown or lose by a touchdown, for me, there's not a whole lot of margin there. The win and the loss,
you can't do that.
I do that. Because it's so minuscule. Because there's such
you expected Yankton to beat
I know, and
Sturgis by a lot.
They did not.
And when they only lost by a touchdown as a 30-point favorite in the Travis Kriens Sports.
If you're considering the margin of victory, you got to consider it there. They underperformed you by 40 points.
So that was a 40-point loss.
What did you think they would do against Pierre?
It changes the subject.
I know. Whenever I mention it's 2 really good wins against 1 bad loss.
I understand.
I'll take the 2 good wins. It's kind of like Alabama last year. They had a couple of not so good losses, but they had a couple of really good wins, and they didn't get in the playoffs because
you're poking holes in my argument. I'm just poking holes back, brother.
But then a week later, we see, it was T2. Sturgis.
You have to admit this. That loss has not aged well.
Which one?
It's getting worse.
Sturgis?
Yankton's loss is getting worse and worse.
Is not looking any better.
It's the same for me because I had them losing by 30 the week before, and they lost by 44.
What about them losing?
It's not good. It was a very bad loss. Yeah. Yes, it's the worst loss of any team in this mix here.
And so,
Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good loss, but 2 good wins for me outweigh. Because who are they going to see in the playoffs? They're going to see Huron. They're going to see Pierre. They've beaten them. They're not playing very well right now. I'll say this as we wrap this up, going around in circles.
Yeah.
Is there any other class? There's 7 classes here. Power rankings versus what you have on paper. In all the 6 other classes, would your rankings be the same? Whoever you think is the best team versus who you have number 1? Because here you have Huron number 1, but I think you think Yankton and Pierre are better. Is there any other class where you say who's the best team in AA? Freeman, Hamlin? Is there any change in any other class?
There's nothing. None of the other ones seem to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
I had Sully Buttes over Avon and Del Rapids, St. Mary for a long time. When I thought
those
Avon,
2 schools are better.
I thought Avon's the best team in the class since the beginning.
But you don't put them number 1 because of
I don't think
their schedule.
I don't think Warner is the second best team in 9A, but they're 7-0. What are you going to tell me that?
Yeah, like Hill City. You and I had Hill City. We didn't even have them ranked.
Yeah.
And they lost a couple weeks ago.
I guess I'm maybe the person who blends the two a little bit more. I've kept Hansen in the rankings in the past.
Yes, it's okay to lose games to good teams.
Yeah, I think.
Because if you're losing to Hamlin by 6, I think you're pretty good. If you're losing to Parkson by 10, I think you're not bad. I think you could be considered maybe a top 5 team, even if you are 3-4, 4-4. People, the losses. I mean, people do not like losing games.
So yes, I don't treat this as like
I don't know. It's very strange because the context. I think this year has been very strange because I would have expected Faulkner area to have fallen out of the poll, and they have 3 losses and they've stayed in the whole time.
That's nice to see,
which is good. I didn't expect that.
And for the seed points to have them so high too, the math works out.
Yeah,
I think that maybe is what's buoying them, as people are like,
they look at the seed points and they're like, well, they're still up there.
Yeah.
I also think we just have a problem in 11 AA because the schedules are unbalanced. Not everybody's playing each other.
There's a lot of teams in the middle.
And there's a lot of teams in the middle. They all beat each other. So that's why we're having a hard time figuring out how we're supposed to put it. If it was like old style Pier and they were just bludgeoning everybody, we wouldn't have to worry about it. And I think it makes 11 AA eons more interesting this year. And I think the playoffs will probably be a complete wild card. So I love that. And we'll see. We'll see where this all goes. I don't think it's a big crime. I also think when we get into this bracket, my hunch is I could see home field for sure in the first round being the difference, and maybe in the semis. We'll see.
Do we get to see Yankton Sturgis again? Do we get to see that again? How would that work? And of course, we're going to see these top 3 teams are going to play each other again at some point. So we'll see how the rematches.
Just to put it out there, right now, if the season ended today and it doesn't, you got Brookings at Huron in the first round, Watertown at Yankton, Sturgis at Pierre, and Spearfish at T area.
I think Spearfish. I would like Spearfish, I guess, to be the only road team to win in that scenario.
I mean, I'm going to be honest.
What happened the first time they played? I don't honestly remember.
Spearfish beat them, right?
And T
beat Spearfish.
T beat Spearfish, 22-14.
Yeah, it's another 1-score game. It's like so. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have a pretty good team be on the road. You're going to have T maybe. I think T is the team that we haven't really talked about them again this week. But again, they're just not anywhere near. I don't think those top.
Their defense will keep them in every game, but good. Man, they're gonna have to score to go anywhere.
Here's the thing: if that is a bracket, T would like their draw. They get to play Spearfish at home, and then they go play a Huron team that likes to play close games. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, T area might be saying, "We got a path to the dome here."
And I guess for me, Huron beating T 16-0 was the first time it was like, oh, Huron's pretty good. That was a game I didn't think they would win.
Huron beating Pierre was it for me.
Aaron being Pierre.
I mean,
and at that time I was like, well, what's wrong with Pierre? What's wrong with Penn State and what's wrong with Pierre?
Well, you said something about
those are back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, you said something before about like what Pierre team will show up. I feel like we've been doing that for 2 years now. It's like an every week thing of like what's going to happen, and
it seems like they've ridden the ship now. They've blown out Sturgis is a good sign.
Do I trust them all the way till the Dakota Dome? No, I'm not sure I'm there on just
I don't know.
Trust them to win it.
If they're impressive at Spearfish, I'd say I think they're they're as good as they're going to get.
I would agree with that. The thing that's really bothered me is that they only beat Brookings by 3 at home.
But then Yankton beats Brookings by 7. It's like, what's wrong? Brookings isn't very good.
But I guess we expected Brookings to be good coming into the year, and they've underperformed. But
yeah, AA excitement. You could do a whole damn podcast on.
We do.
We do half a podcast on AA football. And just for notes,
we've been saying it all year. Don't know nothing about 11 AA.
Still true.
Class 11A 1-2 this week. Sioux Falls Christian hosting Del Rapids. If the Warriors can keep that close.
God, I hope somebody can.
Yeah. And Brandon Valley at Harrisburg this week, a 1 versus a 4, and then should be blowout city for the rest of the top 5 in AAA. Quickly touching on volleyball, Marcus, you've seen enough Mitchell volleyball to know you're watching it here and there in this county and that county. 6 wins in a row, 2 good wins for them. Their 2 best wins of the season versus Jefferson Tuesday versus Stevens on Saturday. Landon, you caught some of the match there on Saturday.
Yes, very
And Stevens, again, probably not the 5th best team. They got a gaudy record at 21-4. But
what were you telling me the mark against South Dakota teams was?
Yeah, they were 6-1.
Yeah.
Double A against double A teams. They were 6-1 going into the match. They played like 17 games versus Wyoming and Iowa and Nebraska.
Wild. That's wild to me.
Like, oh, we're going to play 40 matches this year. But
more power to you in that regard.
I guess the story is for this Mitchell team winning 6 in a row, being now a 6 seed, being 12-4. They've won these close matches because they could very, very easily be an 8-8 team, losing, having not so good losses to Roosevelt and Brookings, but they've won these 5 setters. And in years past, where I think I and you expected them, they're going to lose this game, this match at some point. Now you expect them to win. You're like, all right, when are they going to turn it on? When are they going to win a 4th, force a 5th? And they're having their best season in almost a decade.
Yeah, they were down 2-1 against Jefferson the other night, and I felt pretty comfortable, or confident, I should say, saying they're at least going to get to a 5th set. And I felt like they get to a 5th set, they're probably going to win, and they did exactly that. I think their ability to win those matches is, you don't want to test it, but they're doing an extremely good job of winning those. I think the Stevens match, was it all 3 sets that they won? They had to go to extra points in all of them. And so Stevens...
That's the case. You know what? If they played again, I think Stevens would beat them. Extra point, because Stevens, when Stevens won the 3rd and 4th, or whatever it was, I mean, they beat Mitchell pretty good.
Well, and Jefferson had a match point on Mitchell and wasn't able to close it out, I believe. So they're tough to put away. And, Mitchell... They were a much better serving team. They're a much better attacking team. They're a much better blocking team. All those things add up to them being, I think Kenna Solik has made a big step forward as a libero. So some really quality things from Mitchell lately. They've won these close matches. That's awesome. The schedule gets tougher here. We're taping before they play Watertown. They still got to play Huron, which is always a tough, tricky game. Aberdeen's got a winning record. And then the last 3 matches of the season, Washington, Brandon Valley, O'Gorman. Mitchell, I would say, is not going to be favored in any of those matches, but can they go win one of those, maybe 2 of them? That would be a big step forward. But I think at this point, them being number 6 in the seed points, I think puts them in a good position to have that Sodak 16 match at home, which is a huge deal.
The volleyball schedule mirrors girls basketball.
Yeah.
Because Brandon's good at both, O'Gorman's good at both, and you both play them at the very end of the season. Washington in that mix too. Washington volleyball doesn't appear to be as dominant, but again, they're a state tournament team. So, and you like to see it mixed up a little bit. So, we're like the girl. What were the girls a couple of years, like 13-0, 14-1. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, it's we lost our last 5 because we had to play all of the top 5.
What was your impression, Landon, of Mitchell volleyball?
Yeah, it was that first set is all I caught before I had to run right across basically the hallway, as it were, to Joe Quinnell Field to watch DW football. But I think they were down 18-22.
They were down like 24-21 too.
Yeah. If memory serves. And that just feels like a spot where if this was years past, Mitchell would have not folded, but they just wouldn't have been able to dig themselves out of that spot. And they did to win that first set. And I got the sense after they won that first set that they were just more confident than past Colonel teams. They believed they could play with basically anybody that they've gone up against, and then the play kind of backed that up, and it's a cycle that kind of feeds itself in that regard. And so I was impressed, similar to what you said. Just they strike me as a much more resilient bunch this year than maybe they have been in the most recent seasons.
Mitchell Jefferson on Tuesday. Jefferson had 2 big hitters. Similar to Huron's, got 2 big runners. Mitchell's backfield's got 5 or 6 guys that get touches. And Mitchell's front row, they've got their 2 best hitters are Audrey Miller and Nia Talley. And then Addie Simpson would be in that mix too, but she's setting them up. But then you've got a couple other complementary pieces that could get you 7 or 8, Charlie Collins and Kenzie Hetland and Campbell Weedy. It's like, it's, when I'm keeping my stats, it's like halfway through that first set, they already have like 6 girls who have got kills, which is very, very impressive.
Well, I think they also, it's important to keep them all in the mix. It felt like on Tuesday they kind of fell in this moment where it's like, well, Charlie Collins hasn't had a kill in a while, and then she pops back up. It's like, that's why you need her. And so they, and I mean, I said this before we started taping, but
put it on tape. Put it on tape.
Addie Simpson has been playing incredible as well, and so she's laying down the base work for them to be able to have a lot of success. Triple double in every night. Obviously, she's going to get the assist being the setter, but the digs and the kills and there's a few times where they probably could just set her the ball. Kenna Solik used to be a setter. Maybe when the time comes, you set up Simpson like you normally would, and she's a lefty. That's a little bit different with the ball coming off, and they've done a very good job serving the ball. That was one thing that jumped out to me at the end of that match on Tuesday against Jefferson.
Yeah, they're just better at everything. Not a whole lot of difference in the roster. They're just better at anything, and Addie Simpson had 12 kills Tuesday night, and a lot of those were just, all right, it's open there. I'm not gonna set anybody. I'm gonna take it myself, and there really is no defense for that. So
that brings me back to I did the preview for Mitchell High School volleyball this fall.
It seemed like
in my conversation with Deb. In my conversation with Deb, she was like, I know it's the same team as a year ago, but she's like, we're just so much better at every position and in every regard. And they were shooting for this top 8 position after not even making the Sodak 16 a year ago, correct?
Correct.
A couple years ago. 2 in a row.
And with all due respect to Deb Thill, and I do mean that, 35 years coaching, it's not the same team as last year. Some of these players are getting a lot bigger opportunity. I understand same personnel, but in terms of the makeup of the playing time, it's not the same. And I'm going to write about this. I don't know exactly when it's going to get published, but they have 4 seniors. Addie Simpson and Kenna Solik both played a lot. Campbell Weedy and Audrey Miller did not play a lot. It is their last season. For them to go out on the court and play as well as they are as seniors when they haven't had a ton of playing time in the past is very impressive. And I think hard to do. Of just, this is my last chance to make this happen, and I'm going to go do it. I've been extremely impressed by that.
And they don't have a huge rotation, but even the ones they bring off the bench to serve, London Hayek's only a sophomore, Cassidy Corzan serves for Audrey Miller all the time. They just don't miss any serves anymore. I mean, you expect them to get the serves over. Serving is like offensive line play. It's like, it is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You've got nothing if you have an offensive line. If you can't serve, it don't matter if you've got hitters, if you can't get the ball over the net. But it's,
and they're not lollipops. A lot of them are pretty tough. Good darts right over the top of the net. So, yeah, great analogy there. So
we'll end it on that almost. Landon, I don't want to say which one are you more concerned about, because I think Brewers are down 2-0. That's a hole against a really good Dodgers team who's clicking right now. So I'll ask you about Matt Rule. I feel like very tight. What's a clean way to say you're very clinched? You're tight clinched. This will be off air. You're tight, very clinched here for the next 6 weeks. Because once that
have this lead right into the Colonel game.
Since that regular season finale is done, it's like, is he or is he not going to Penn State? Because he's certainly not saying, no, I'm staying.
Let me just interject. I appreciate his answer. He gave a non-coach speak answer to the question.
Like, yeah, maybe.
But if you're a Husker fan, it wasn't the most satisfying. He didn't come out and say, no, I'm not going to be the coach at Penn State next year.
Well, makes me believe I think he's going to be the coach.
Who did we just see that with recently where, like, they did that and then they just did what they... So, like, I'm glad that he didn't come out and say it because that doesn't mean anything anyway.
Because even if he did, it'd still be, well, he's probably going to go. Even if he says, nope, I'm staying.
And, I mean, I'm not naive. He's a Penn State grad. He played football there. It makes sense, right?
It'd be surprising if he didn't.
It does seem to me like he was genuine in his want to stay in Lincoln, for what that's worth. But if the bag is large, man, I mean, it's
the only spot he would leave to. It's the only spot he would go to.
What I think is interesting is he did the very coach thing where he said, well, my wife decides where we live. And it's like, all right, buddy. That's not true. The guy making $10 million a year probably has the biggest say. But I like Matt Rule at Nebraska. I think he's doing a great job. And I think what's interesting is what would be the reasons he would leave Nebraska for Penn State? Facilities-wise, probably about the same.
Just because he's there.
Nebraska just has new
everything. Nebraska has new everything and more new everything coming eventually. And the pay is going to be about the same. The NIL, there might be a little bit more at Penn State. Nebraska's working very hard at it. But to me, one of the biggest aspects would be access to talent. There is so much, you have so much proximity to talent, I should say, so much more proximity at Penn State than you do at Nebraska. And I think that's the biggest reason Nebraska isn't Nebraska anymore, because it's not the 90s. National TV doesn't matter because all the games are on national TV, essentially.
They don't play Oklahoma and Texas anymore.
Yeah, so you don't have those natural trips to Texas.
The South like that dried up is a big.
It's a higher ceiling. You can win a national title at Penn State. You're not quite there at Nebraska.
But that is not necessarily true because Nebraska or Penn State hasn't done anything in terms of a national. They're much closer. They were in the Final Four last year, but they haven't won a national title in 40 years. Nebraska's won more recently than
But they're
Penn State.
closer to it, and
Two.
Yeah, they've got a
three.
Yeah, three in the 90s. So, but I just find that interesting of like, what are the, especially last time there was a coach that left a Big Ten school to go to another Big Ten school, it's been a very long time. So that doesn't happen very often. And right now you're seeing coaches either want to get into the SEC and Big Ten. You don't see a lot of getting out of there or moving or anything like that. And I don't know. It'll be, and I also think you've heard this talked about this week as well. If Nebraska's somehow in the playoff, I think that protects Rule from going to Penn State because it's a lot harder to recruit. Or you can't wait as long. Can't wait for a coach to finish their run in the playoff.
Yeah,
they're going to want to make that higher basically the week of the conference title games.
Thanksgiving.
Or very soon after, yeah.
Well, I guess, Thanksgiving's the last week of the regular
They play Iowa the Friday after Thanksgiving. I mean,
every year.
We're going to know.
But I mean, Penn State's going to want to make that higher.
We're going to know Saturday. We're going to know Saturday after Thanksgiving whether he's going. We're going to know Friday night whether he's going. If he's not, they're going to go somewhere else.
I guess that's probably true.
Probably true.
Like what Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma, like there were like seconds on the clock and he's on the plane. I'm done. Like, oh, he's done? Yep. Oh, we just kind of came up with this, about 15 minutes ago. I decided to leave Oklahoma and go to USC and really not do much over there. But
you might know after Friday when the Gophers beat Nebraska in the playoff.
I'm sure he probably knows right now.
Not going to happen.
He probably knows. Oh, really? All right.
It's not.
I think he knows right now whether he's going or not. I mean, it's like, well, what are we going to do? They want him. If he wants, it's up to him.
It is up to him.
It's up to him. So
I also
selfishly, I really do not want him to leave.
Obviously,
I think he's very good for Nebraska. I think obviously, people have poked some holes in what Nebraska's done so far, and I understand.
They're a lot better.
There's a lot of games already. The Cincinnati game, the Michigan State game, the Maryland game.
They lose those games.
They would lose those games in years past. They're finding ways to win. Whereas in years past, they were inventing ways to lose. That's something that I said constantly is Nebraska was inventing new ways to lose every week. They're finding ways to win these games. I don't care if it's close. The W is the W.
That is all that matters.
For them right now. And they have a favorable schedule. I mean, really, when I look at this, they have to play USC in Lincoln, I think.
They can lose one more game and still be in that.
I think that's easily their most difficult game. Other than that, I think everything else is winnable.
I think this game against Minnesota is their toughest outside of that.
It's very tricky coming off a road game, coming off, you just were at Maryland, now it's a short week, you go on the road, that's tough. Minnesota's had their number. Minnesota's not playing as well as they have in past years when they beat Nebraska, but
Iowa terrifies me because Iowa should
terrify you. Yeah.
Was that Iowa?
Which Nebraska won that 2 years ago at Iowa.
No, they've lost 2 in a row.
Wasn't it 2 years ago? They just
maybe it was because it's in Lincoln again this year. They remember 2 years ago Nebraska had the ball and was driving, and it's like, oh, there's no way they.
That's right.
At worst, this is going to overtime.
So that was last year they won at Iowa.
And then did they win it? No, because Caleb Johnson ran wild on them last year. I think.
I think look at the whole schedule.
Yeah, look it up.
They lost at Iowa last year, 13-10,
and then they lost on a Drew Stevens field goal.
And they lost 2 years ago,
3 years
13-10.
ago. So it was 3 years ago.
22, going back to 22. They won.
They won at Iowa.
I seem to remember Hutmacher celebrating at Iowa, so I'm like, well, it had to have happened recently.
They've had 2 horrific losses in a row to Iowa.
I remember how are they going to lose this game? That was at home. I remember that. So,
would you be okay if James Franklin was the next coach?
At Nebraska, you should be.
They'd be like, yeah, you could do worse.
By the way, that's a very...
It has nothing to do with James Franklin. I think James Franklin's a terrific coach. I don't think he should have lost his job. I don't know if he's a fit at Nebraska. Like, I wouldn't mind it.
He's from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'd have to think on it.
Would he go back to Vanderbilt?
Just in terms of, is he a good coach? Yeah, I would like him in Nebraska.
That's a very college football 26 thing to happen in your dynasty where your coach goes from one school and then all of a sudden you end up with the other guy, especially if it's a CPU dynasty where it's like, oh, Matt Rule has left a lot in my dynasties. I'm not controlling Nebraska. And it's like, oh, he's leaving for this job. And in the game, there's a lot of in-conference switching, which doesn't happen in real life. So,
like this, if Matt Rule leaves, this would be maybe the first place that he doesn't have to kind of rebuild.
Yeah, well, his big thing is, taking off in year 3, he should be able to hit the ground running. That's with the understanding that recruits and players leave when coaches move now, and then players come in with the new coach. So, what all that looks like, I don't know. But
would James Franklin go back to Vanderbilt?
For what? They ain't firing Clark Lee.
They're not firing.
Is he leaving? It's like, I've got 2 really good years of Vanderbilt. I don't know how long this is going to last. Let me propel this.
I think as a coach in the SEC, you're sitting pretty comfortable. Where would he go?
He went to Vanderbilt too, and Vanderbilt's investing big time in their football program.
I feel like, and then I got to mention Indiana.
Let's not change the subject quite yet. What do you want to say about Drew Aller?
He sucks.
He's done.
He'll never play again.
He's done. He's done in college football.
He really tore it up at 13-20 versus Northwestern.
He will play in the NFL.
Preseason second half.
I was just wondering if you take the high road, and he didn't.
No, he's not.
I'm just letting you know he was not the reason Penn State was bad.
He was part of the reason why.
He was part of the reason.
Yeah, he wasn't very good. If he was
the way that offense is being called does not suit. He's a pocket passer, and they're trying to use him like.
That's more like it. Why is their offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki and Drew Aller? Why were they?
Because he's a Kotelnicki.
Why were they not on the same page for 6 weeks?
Yeah, it looked bad because they're trying to use him like a scrambling or at least dual threat. And like Drew Aller can run, but not. I don't know. I don't want him running in the design of the offense. I want him throwing the ball down the field. And to be frank, their receiver core was bad a year ago. It's worse now.
Not good. Indiana, your thoughts?
They might be the best team in the country outside of Ohio State.
I guess that was the win against Oregon. Okay, they're really good now. Because last year they had the schedule.
Yeah.
And they got to the playoff and lost to Notre Dame by, a good margin. And then, they beat Illinois by 53. It's like, okay, Illinois is not bad. They're top 20, 25 team.
But it was at home.
But that you don't see that. You don't see 2 ranked teams play, no matter who they are.
And one team beat them by 50.
63-10. You do not see that. And then they go to Oregon, and they
that game
win
wasn't
there.
even as close as that score was.
No, it wasn't.
They were the better team.
Half was dominant.
They were the better team throughout. They win 30-20. And you look at Indiana. I guess I'm a believer now that they're actually good. But then you go back to the discussion from a half hour ago. Oregon barely beat Penn State. So is that win? Nobody wins at Oregon. It's very difficult to win there. But is Oregon as good as we think? If they're only beating Penn State with that.
They beat Penn State in a whiteout. That's probably the most, that's the most difficult environment in college football.
They had the best road win of the year until Indiana went and won at Oregon.
Yeah.
So now.
So yes, I still think Oregon is very good.
It's one of those things we reevaluate Penn State now. We put them at a different level. Of course, Drew Aller's not there, but it's like, okay, yeah, Penn State got so bad they had to fire their coach of 10 years.
And at the beginning of the season, people looked at Indiana and they said their schedule's going to be more difficult. They got to go to Oregon and they have to play Penn State.
And they lost Curtis Rourke, their quarterback. Right. He graduated.
And now they have a better quarterback.
And now people are like, who's this Fernando Mendoza guy?
Yeah, people are saying Fernando Mendoza might be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft.
Well, he's the front runner for the Heisman right now.
Jeepers.
And now that Penn State Indiana game ain't too scary for
Indiana. No, but look at Penn State, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's a win. That's not a loss. That's a win.
You look at their schedule, they should be 12-0 playing Ohio State.
Yeah, they don't play anybody.
Penn State might not make a bowl. I mean, they're 0-3 in the Big Ten, and their schedule's really hard. Or reasonably hard, I should say. They play Iowa this week. They might not.
I'm very interested next week.
Stop.
Whatever the no. To me, what I got in the computer screen here. I mean, there's not enough games to go around. CBS and the NBC. It's not very pleasurable to watch Big Ten football on the big networks when there's not enough good teams to. Yeah, it sucks. Next week, the big game is UCLA, Indiana. If UCLA can win against Maryland this week, that'd be 3 in a row. That intrigues me.
They haven't assigned any of these games yet.
No, that's your main game. That is your game, whatever it is. NBC at 6:30, if that's the main game, or if it's the CBS 2:30, whatever it is, either you're going to highlight Indiana, or you're going to say, hey, UCLA, not so bad. And we look at that UCLA win versus Penn State. Again, we got to let it play out. Maybe UCLA is like a 5-win team. Maybe that loss to Penn State, a 24-point favorite, not the worst burn down the bridges loss of the year. It's like, let it play out. Let's see where these teams end in the regular season, because we got to be, you lost to UCLA, they're 0-4. They weren't supposed to win a single game. And all of a sudden, they might win like 4 games
Nobody
this
talks out of both sides of their mouth better than you.
But nobody.
When I would laughed, it was when he pulled up this UCLA page. I'm just like, no, stop.
He's doing it.
Because people have, they have this perception that this is who you are. You're UCLA, you're not any good. These last 2 weeks, they're not bad. They beat Maryland, that's 3 in a row.
They beat Michigan State.
38-13.
I don't care.
No, nobody's winning. No, I don't think anybody thought they'd win.
I'm not saying people thought they'd, but you acting like they beat, I don't know. You're acting like they beat Penn State again.
People thought they were going to go 0-12. Once they lost to Northwestern, it's like, oh, great, you're 0-12.
Yeah. Well,
now it's like, oh, not only 2 wins in a row.
Actually, after they fired Deshaun Foster, I knew they'd start winning games.
And
honestly,
honestly,
that's just what every team that fires their coach does.
Well, and how bad was Deshaun Foster? Pretty bad.
Let's not get into that.
Biggest win of the year, it's UCLA beating not only the biggest upsets, but probably the most important, because we're going to see the domino effect here in 6 weeks. If that doesn't happen, James Franklin's still the coach. They're not going to fire him because they lost 1 point to Northwestern. It's going to be hot on him. Yeah. But if they beat UCLA, boom, he's gone. Nebraska's coach is gone. Who's Nebraska going to take? So, yeah, UCLA beating.
So you're saying that UCLA at Indiana,
they might get smoked by 50.
Is gonna.
But there's nothing else. Are you saying
that's the big game?
UCLA still has a path to the Big Ten title if they beat everybody.
There's nothing on that. You just look at the Big Ten every week. It's like, what game are they going to pick? There's just not enough games.
Well, right now, next week, you still got, it looks like your options are Minnesota at Iowa, Michigan State, or UCLA, Indiana for
Indiana.
Big noon kickoff. Are you going to make UCLA play at 9 a.m.?
No, play like whatever
noon.
Is it what's available or what slots are available.
Well,
there's NBC.
I think both the other games over.
UCLA, Indiana, they've left open for anything. Minnesota, Iowa, it's got to be 11 or 2:30. Same for Wisconsin and Oregon. And then, honestly, can we talk about bad Wisconsin? Northwestern at Nebraska. If Nebraska wins, could be Big Noon or CBS or something because Nebraska can be 6-1.
Who's going to take the Wisconsin job?
Jason Eck, because he played at Wisconsin.
Whoa. Look at this. We'll end it on that. Marcus, Landon, me, Travis. You're going to be at this Minnesota Nebraska game.
I am.
As we speak, you're there.
Yes. So
watch for him on the TV. Landon, you'll be at
I'll be watching the Nebraska.
Mitchell Huron.
Huron and keeping an eye or two on Nebraska, Minnesota.
And
Scores by 40.
And Marion Freeman Academy Avon.
There we go.
He'll have 2 phones.
Bracket talk next week.
Yes, sir.
We will break it down.
Can't wait.
Like no other. We'll see what we get into next week. Marcus, Landon, Travis. And show Corner Booth brought to you by James Valley Landscape Solutions, Marlin's Family Restaurant, and Jimmy John's. Also available on Apple iTunes and on Spotify.
Yes, sir.